You guys today, DiJonai Carrington, after clotheslining Sophie Cunningham, running into the locker room, screaming, "That's white privilege!" Then tweeting 8/23, threatening Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever. DiJonai Carrington now comes out and clarifies what she means when she says white privilege for the Indiana Fever.
So with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, DiJonai Carrington just slapped the dog shit out of Sophie Cunningham. Sophie pops up. She's obviously upset. DiJonai says, "Try me." And then look at Stephanie White. Look at her face. Look. It's mad as shit. Now, number one, this is obviously a flagrant-two. It just is. By the letter of the law, you got to call a flagrant-two. We all know these refs are not.
That girl needs to be thrown out the league. She's not even a good enough player to be bringing this type of drama. She needs to be thrown.
Welcome back to the Clark Update. I am here today with another wild update, and I hope you enjoy it. Stick around until the very end because I will keep you entertained while breaking down the entire story. So, without wasting another second, let's jump straight into it. DJ Carrington apparently felt the internet needed a lesson after she was ejected from the game. Just 2 sentences straight out of the locker room with no apology and no explanation. White privilege. Days later, she is still defending that post, retracting it, trying to clarify, and arguing with pretty much anyone who dares to disagree with her. This has turned into an absolute disaster. Honestly, it might be the most bizarre response we have seen from any WNBA player all season. If you appreciate this kind of content, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 90% of our viewers still have not subscribed. It is free and only takes a second, but it truly means the world to us. So, are you subscribed yet? Awesome. Thank you so much for the support. Now, let's get back to the action.
Sophie Cunningham, otherwise known as MAGA Barbie in the WNBA, is a superstar player. She's one of the most famous female athletes in the world because she stood up for women in women's sports, saying only biological women should be allowed to play in the WNBA. And for that, she is literally risking her life. Check this out. This is what happened to Sophie Cunningham last night when she was clotheslined by a filthy, dirty player for Chicago who has a name that I can't pronounce, or maybe I just refuse to do that. That's my right as an American. But this is a player that has attacked Caitlin Clark, gouged her eye out, that has now bloodied the face of Sophie Cunningham. And as soon as she did this, she tweeted white privilege, meaning she's declaring this is a race crime. Now, if a white woman was doing this to black women, it'd be the #1 story in the world. She'd be banned from the league forever. But somehow black women are allowed to get away with this against white women. And it's white women in the league who make themselves a target by simply standing up for traditional values. And
on top of that, Sophie Cunningham has been one of the more vocal supporters of her Fever colleague Caitlin Clark all season long, going on the record multiple times to claim that neither the league nor the referees do enough to protect Caitlin Clark from the physical abuse she takes every night. She has actively criticized specific performances, specific individuals, and even stated outright that some teams have discussed trying to teach Caitlin Clark what the W is really like behind closed doors. Talking like that does not exactly make you popular around the league.
Goo! That's assault, brother. You can't do that. What the fuck? Is this just the default if you can't think? Or if you just don't want to take accountability for your actions? Oh my god, this league, bro. This league. Bro. White privilege while you're wearing a bleach blonde dyed wig. I mean, the fuck? What is privileged about that? You Stone Cold Steve Austin clotheslined her ass. What about that is white privilege? The WNBA stays undefeated. It truly.
They just cannot seem to get out of their own way. This backstory is crucial because it explains why so many people watched this specific foul and believed something deeper was happening than a hard basketball play. Cunningham has already established herself as one of the few players willing to speak up about Caitlin Clark's rough treatment on the court. And now, she is the one who got caught in the face by a forearm, drawing actual blood. The narrative surrounding the whole situation practically wrote itself the second that ejection went down. Whether Carrington intended that subtext or not, it is deeply concerning how far we have drifted from the actual plot at this point. And when I say losing the plot, I am talking about the actual basketball. It is crazy how far we have spiraled from the actual game. When it comes to the WNBA, we used to always joke around about the constant chaos. Like 0 days without some kind of drama, but now this league is living up to that reputation at a level that is honestly starting to get a little concerning. Total madness in the WNBA right now. DJ Carrington actually tweeted about white privilege. Imagine tweeting about white privilege from the locker room of a game you were just playing in. Get this, she fouled Sophie Cunningham hard. Cunningham is obviously white. Carrington hit her hard, got a flagrant-2, and was ejected. Then she goes straight to the locker room and tweets about white privilege in the middle of a game. Here is the real kicker for me. A flagrant-2 requires contact that looks completely excessive and could cause an injury. And DJ, this hit was about as excessive as it gets. If you are looking for actual proof of white privilege, this definitely was not it. But Cunningham is not the only person who has noticed this growing tension. Earlier this year, when a league-wide player poll ranked Clark as only the 9th best guard, the legendary broadcaster Dick Vitale spoke up. He called the voting process pure jealousy, predicting that these players will eventually realize how much Clark has boosted them all financially. Once this Carrington incident happened, those words took on a strange new meaning. It felt like yet another case of a player linked to Clark and Cunningham taking a brutal physical hit. Plus, a former teammate is openly celebrating it while the head coach defends the offender instead of the league showing any real sympathy. Seeing this pattern repeat makes it really hard not to wonder if Vitale was actually right. That was a serious blow, and I think it is definitely going to get upgraded to a flagrant-2. Ryan, I really think we are looking at a flagrant-2 here. There is no excuse for that. They had to get her off the floor. That was basically a right hook, make no mistake. Carrington targeted Cunningham. She went after her for her political views, and because of all the praise Cunningham has been getting lately, she targeted her with a cheap shot that had absolutely nothing to do with the game. Then, the second she gets ejected, she runs straight to the locker room to play the victim. As if she did not just try to take Cunningham's head off in high definition. We all watched it happen. That is not competition. That is a grown woman taking a swing at someone she dislikes, then crying racism the moment she actually gets held accountable. DJ Carrington needs real consequences, and I do not just mean getting tossed from a single game. Here is what actually went down on the hardwood, because once you review the footage, it is pretty straightforward. Cunningham was running the fast break, completely open, and heading up to the basket for what should have been an easy layup. Instead of playing defense, DJ Carrington pursued her from behind, striking Cunningham in the head and neck area with her forearm, sending her crashing to the floor. The ball actually went in, but nobody cared about the points. Play was immediately stopped. The refs checked the replay monitor and upgraded the foul to a flagrant-2, triggering an automatic ejection under league rules. You cannot even argue it. Wind up, heavy impact, follow through, injury risk, and a defenseless player that is a textbook flagrant-2. It checked every single box on the list. The way Cunningham landed on her leg, she is lucky she did not get seriously hurt. So the officials basically told her to get lost. But then, I do not know if you caught her lip reading on camera. She was mouthing, try me. Like, come on, you already went after Sophie. What are you even saying? You literally just took a shot at her, and now you are talking about try me? This woman is acting completely unhinged right now. This is wild. It really makes you wonder you were the best player on the Sky at that exact moment. Just look at how she landed on that leg. Unreal. You are the star player for the Sky, and you pull this? Basketball was not even on your mind. You were clearly focused on getting some sort of personal revenge. It feels like someone sent you on a mission out there. I have no clue what your problem is, but DJ, this behavior is toxic and disrespectful. I am glad the refs threw you out. Cunningham bounced right back up, her face absolutely red with pure anger. She immediately got right into Carrington's face before teammates and officials could step in. Keep in mind, this league seems to judge reactions differently depending on who is involved. Actually, the head of the officiating crew explained after the game that Cunningham was not penalized because her reaction was deemed entirely appropriate, given the sheer violence of the hit she had just taken. And so, even the referees back then basically admitted that what happened to her was serious enough to justify her getting angry. Just look at this photo of the flagrant. We are talking about a flagrant-2 on DJ Carrington against Sophie Cunningham. After getting ejected, Carrington went straight to the locker room and tweeted the phrase, "white privilege." I am not going to comment on that situation, but I will say this. This is a flagrant-two. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it does not matter. It is a flagrant. I mean, she basically clotheslined her. What more do you want? It looks incredibly bad. It just shows that the WNBA is nowhere near where it needs to be professionally, because again, this was a straight clothesline. It is a flagrant-two. That is what makes Carrington's later comments so puzzling. Where does race even enter the conversation when the referees themselves ruled that the contact was completely excessive and unnecessary? And that Cunningham getting upset after taking a blow to the face was completely understandable? No matter who committed or drew the foul, nobody was selling it. A player was literally struck across the head and neck while trying to make a shot. So they upgraded the call, and no matter who you are, every single player in the league is subject to that exact same rule. Forget the rest. Her posting about white privilege is the real story here. The big issue is not just that she got thrown out, it is that she posted about white privilege, as if Sophie Cunningham being white was somehow the reason for her ejection. They even go on to defend her. There is this ongoing narrative that she is not a dirty player, but she pulls stunts like this all the time. I actually put together a quick clip of DiJonai Carrington, who is easily one of the dirtiest players in the WNBA. I do not know if we can show it, but she has used her long fingernails before. She literally scratched at Caitlin Clark's eyes. She has chased players down from behind multiple times, attempting that same wild swat, hitting them in the head, and sparking several fights. She even pulled another player's hair. If we see the clip of her falling, you will see it is an absolute dirty play. This has nothing to do with skin color. She has a history of dirty plays, and look, that is fine. Even in the NBA, you can be a rough and tumble league. Now, where this situation gets completely wild is when people turn it into a race and culture war. Meanwhile, 99% of the commentators ignore the fact that she went online and repeatedly posted about white privilege. However, Carrington went straight to her Threads account and posted the words white privilege. She even tagged the Indiana Fever right below it, rather than just accepting the decision and moving on. In that moment, there was absolutely no further explanation offered. Just those two words, leaving everyone on the internet to interpret them however they wanted. Naturally, everyone read it the exact same way, because there was really no other way to interpret that timing. Minutes after getting thrown out for hitting a white player in the face, she posts about white privilege and tags that very same team. You do not have to be a genius to connect those dots, and practically everyone in the sports world did so immediately. We are paying attention to what DiJonai Carrington did to Sophie Cunningham. It was not a race-based decision. To claim that this foul was about white privilege completely dilutes the actual meaning of the term, while also totally ignoring the basic rules of basketball. You struck her in the head, you drew blood, and you did not make any contact with the ball whatsoever. So, in my view, it was just incredibly ignorant and honestly foolish of DiJonai Carrington to suggest that the official's call was driven by white privilege. Have we watched white players commit that exact same foul and get away with it? Yes, we have. Have we watched black players make that identical foul and get away with it? Yes. There was zero white privilege involved in this particular decision. DJ Jane, you hit her in the head and drew blood. Emanuel Ako stepped up at that point, and to be perfectly honest, he did not hold back one bit. He broke down exactly why this situation was strictly about basketball rules and had absolutely nothing to do with race. He emphasized that Carrington hit Cunningham right in the head, drawing blood, and missed the ball entirely, which is precisely why the referees called the foul the way they did. He pointed out that we have seen white players get away with those fouls before, and we have seen black players get away with them too. This clearly shows that skin color was never a factor in this specific decision, and Ako did not stop there. He called the whole situation stupid and uneducated. That is definitely strong language. But those words perfectly captured how so many commentators and fans felt as they watched the drama unfold in real time. The fact that Ako did not just say Carrington was wrong is what made his breakdown so hard-hitting. He basically called her out in real time, showing how she seemed to react purely on emotion in the heat of the moment, only to try and justify it once the backlash started rolling in. He correctly pointed out that every possible matchup of players in this league takes plenty of hard hits. Yet we never hear terms like white on white, black on black, or white on black to describe those other fouls. There is simply no other way to read it when a player gets ejected, instantly tags her opponent's team, and slaps the label white privilege on the whole thing. That is exactly where things spun out of control, because instead of taking the criticism personally, Carrington fired back at Ako, making the entire situation even more confusing. She made it a point to say she never once claimed the foul call itself was white privilege. You assumed that. Try using your critical thinking skills, since I know you studied psychology. She went on to say that when discussing white privilege, she is far from uneducated. Go look that up. I went to one of the absolute best universities to study this exact subject, she stated. Knowing the historical weight of that phrase, she argued she would never throw it around without solid proof. Basically, she is claiming that nobody should have connected her post about white privilege to the clip of her getting thrown out for hitting a white player, despite explicitly tagging that player's team. But here is the part that makes absolutely no sense. If that post was not about the foul, what was it actually about? She literally tagged her opponent's team and hit post the second she walked off the court after the referees reviewed and ejected her. The timing of the post tells the whole story. Also, no amount of lecturing about critical thinking can change what fans saw with their own eyes. You cannot act like you just discovered the moon. You cannot pretend you are the only genius in the room while treating everyone else like they are idiots. What I mean is, if you want us to use critical thinking after throwing out a heavy phrase like white privilege at the Indiana Fever, you did not give us much to go on. You dropped a massive, incredibly inflammatory phrase like white privilege, which is naturally highly volatile, but you left out any kind of context. So now we, the interpreters, since you posted it publicly on Threads for the entire world to see, we are left to scramble and figure out what on earth you were actually talking about. Well, plain common sense says you were talking about fouling a white player and getting ejected for that exact play. Now, as I have said online and will say to your face, if that is not what you were implying, then that is on me. I will back off and admit I was wrong. But I have to reiterate one last thing. We live in a speaker-oriented country. Yes, a speaker-oriented, not receiver-oriented country. It is entirely on you, the speaker, to be clear, direct, and obvious. It is not up to the receiver, the reader, or the listener to decode it. It was pretty clear that Ako was not buying this walk back either. In a sarcastic online response, he essentially said, fine. If you say those two things were not connected, then I stand corrected. But since America is a speaker-oriented nation, it was her job to be explicit from the jump, rather than leaving vague terms for millions of fans to decipher. And that is really the core issue of this whole story. After a highly heated ejection, you cannot throw out a heavy phrase like white privilege, call out a specific team, and then get defensive when people assume it was about the play. That does not mean people are making wild assumptions. People were just reading what was right in front of them, saying things like, and I know it is a joke, love a trans F. This is essentially cheering when a player gets clobbered and you are on television. You are not like those online commentators. You are different. You went on television and basically called Caitlin Clark soft for taking a blow to the neck from Alyssa Thomas. You got massive opportunities from this very organization. You got huge opportunities because of the sheer spotlight Caitlin Clark brought your way. You truly did. You benefited from that. You joined the Indiana Fever for those exact perks, took them, and grew even more famous. But the second you leave, you rejoin the sisterhood, turn against Caitlin Clark, and start celebrating when she gets taken out. This is precisely where the storyline gets even more bizarre, as other prominent voices stepped up to support Carrington. In response to that hard foul, Sydney Colson, who played alongside Cunningham on the Fever just last season, posted that she thought the play was fantastic. This is a former teammate who saw Cunningham get hit across the face and neck with enough force to bleed, yet she is publicly celebrating it instead of being concerned. That tells you absolutely everything you need to know about how polarizing Sophie Cunningham and this whole music fever situation have become. Opposing fans are no longer the only ones making all this noise. In fact, players who once shared the very same locker room are driving this drama. Personally, I do not believe Carrington intentionally tried to strike her across the neck like that. But it happened, and checking the replay, the referees absolutely made the right call. The thing is, Carrington is always going to play her heart out on the court. She is a fierce competitor, and nobody gets an easy path to the basket. Because of that, I really do not mind the hard foul. At the same time, I still do not think she targeted her neck on purpose. Remarkably, even Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, did not fully defend her own player like you might expect. Following the game, Coach White told reporters she believed Carrington did not target the neck intentionally, even if she respected the aggressive play. She explained that Carrington was just competing, and no opponent should expect an easy look at the basket. It is definitely strange to hear that level of tolerance from a coach whose own player was just hit hard enough to bleed. Right now, more than anyone else across the entire WNBA, these two athletes are driving the unprecedented surge in television ratings, ticket sales, and massive media attention. Major networks are shuffling their broadcast schedules to fit their games, as fans pack previously empty arenas just to watch them play. Yet, this season has seen far too many moments where players and coaches alike seem actively intent on halting that momentum instead of protecting it. Whether through blatant cheap shots, dangerous flagrant fouls, or public cheers when someone gets hurt, they are literally getting dragged online and on the court. She has been called every terrible name in the book. Coaches have openly criticized her, while fans actively label Sophie Cunningham as anti-trans and transphobic. It is honestly not a stretch to say that the league as a whole simply dislikes Sophie Cunningham. Still, after deliberately grabbing Sophie Cunningham by the neck and getting tossed from the game, Carrington immediately went on Twitter to claim her ejection was due to the white privilege of Sophie Cunningham inside an 80% black and 90% LGBTQ league. Oh yeah, that is apparently where Sophie Cunningham gets her white privilege in what is being called a minstrel show of a league. That is where her white privilege supposedly shines. Carrington, you are a complete joke. You jumped up pretending to go for the ball, but you knew you were nowhere near making a play on it. So while hanging in midair, you decided this was your perfect opportunity to grab Sophie Cunningham by the throat and yank her straight down. When you really analyze it, the dynamic is deeply bizarre, especially in several instances. The players who seem most hostile toward Clark and Cunningham are the exact same ones who profit most from their impact on this league. We are talking bigger paychecks, massive audiences, and historic television deals. All of this growth is directly tied to the massive spotlight these two players attract. And yet, a lot of the response from inside the league looks more like jealousy than gratitude, including White soft-pedaling the hard hit on her own player. From Colson celebrating the collision, to Carrington's dangerous foul, her defensive tweet, and her endless social media feud with Ako, it all paints a clear picture. No matter how many essays are written to rewrite history, the referee's decision to eject her had absolutely nothing to do with race. Carrington can lecture everyone about elite colleges and critical thinking skills as much as she likes, but the suspicious timing of her original post spoke volumes long before her public defense came out. After all, late explanations rarely change what the entire world saw happen in real time. When your own player commits an obvious flagrant-two foul and immediately posts about white privilege from the dressing room, you lose the right to complain when the conversation shifts to race in our broader sports culture. She is the one who opened that door. This was a physical basketball play until she brought race into it, yet national broadcasts ignore her tweets entirely. Instead, they complain that the media is turning this into some kind of race war. They say this is our league, telling fans not to let political groups hijack it. Meanwhile, your own player is the one who tweeted about white privilege. Right now, the WNBA is caught in a tough spot. They are celebrating the biggest ratings spike in league history, while simultaneously trying to manage a locker room culture where players seem eager to tear down the very stars driving that success. Carrington's ejection was completely justified. The replay review went as planned, and the officiating was absolutely spot on. The real issue is what happened next. The social media posts, the backpedaling, the clash with Ako, and the cheers from a former teammate. That is the part of this story that is not going away anytime soon. And it is the part that actually tells us way more about where the league stands today than any single awful rule violation ever could.